So when I was a kid, I used to love like TV shows about like the reality shows about tattoos and tattooing. I still kind of do. Some like a lot of them are like trashy reality TV shows, but I still kind of love them. But ever since I was like 11 or 12, I've known that I've wanted tattoos, and also I'm an artist, so like it's kind of a thing that artists get tattoos because, you know, art. But it was the 27th of February, and I remember this very distinctly, and we were coming back from picking up the portfolios from the NCAD submission thing. It had been assessed for my application to the college, and we were picking it up. And my friend, I'd gone with a friend because she didn't really know town that well, and we passed the tattoo studio that I really liked, and I had said that's where I wanted to get my tattoo done. And she was like, "Do you have money?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "You're doing it now." So I got a tattoo. I don't know if you can see that. So it's now been February, so 4 months since I got it, and I really, really love it. It's in my skin. That amazes me every day. But I want to kind of explain what it means, because it's like, as much as it says like it's be kind, so it's kind of, you can very much take it at face value, but there's also like a lot of other shit involved with why I wanted it, and it's gonna seem like a reach, but I promise that this was actually my thought process in coming up to getting this tattoo. So here we go. This is gonna seem like out of left field, but I've loved Doctor Who since I was I would have been 10. So Matt Smith just came on as the Doctor. It would be 2010, and there's this reoccurring theme over the course of Doctor Who and the new show since 2005. And I can't really vouch for the old series, the like old Who kind of, in a way, but I'm pretty sure it's there. But there's this reoccurring theme in at least New Who of like kindness, being kind, being nice. What do those things mean? Why should we value them? And then kind of through the stories that they tell, which is kind of inherent to science fiction, how these weird and wonderful and fantastic and scary things happen, but how ultimately the lesson behind them is something that's so intrinsic to humanity. And a lot of the stories can be boiled down to understanding people and being kind to them. And that, for a very long time, that was something that I strove for. So there's this is going to seem a little bit all over the place, but there's this kind of idea that being a good person is inherent, that good people are just good people. And I've always struggled with that idea, in that I make my choices to be good, to do the right thing often. And people often think of that as like, people will say I'm a good person because I'm a good listener, or I'm kind, or I'm these things. But the reality is I'm making choices over and over again to do those things because those are what I value in people and want to project myself as. So because this is a reoccurring idea in Doctor Who, which has meant so much to me over the course of the last 10 years of my life, when Peter Capaldi became the 12th Doctor, I really loved him, and this idea of being kind got, I guess, a new perspective, because the 12th Doctor he's kind of grumpy, he's kind of mean and grumpy, and like just hasn't got the time for dealing with nonsense. And he managed to summarize how I felt about being a good person into one line, and before that I'd always had trouble like articulating or explaining why I felt the way that I did about like all these things. And he says this line, I think it's in I think it's in one of his last episodes, and it meant a lot to me. Like, it felt very profound when I first heard it. And it is, always try to be nice, but never fail to be kind.
Always try to be nice, but never fail to be kind.
And I always, like, it was I had always found it very hard to articulate the idea of niceness and kindness being two different things, and how niceness is politeness and being good to people, but kindness is about the inherent actions that you take and your intention behind them. So you can be nice to people, but they can be treating you like a doormat, whereas being an asshole to people who are treating you like a doormat is ultimately the right thing to do, and thus you're being kind not only to yourself but to them by making them take account of what they're doing. So that's always been my brain space about those kind of things. I found it really hard to articulate, and then that line, I remember sitting on my couch watching that episode and that line being said and immediately having to sit there and process it, because it managed to articulate all these things that I had spent so long trying to explain. And then I had, like, one of the things that I've been saying for about 3 or 4 years is that I wanted a Doctor Who tattoo. Even if it wasn't like a TARDIS or like something as outright in kind of Doctor Who things, like it doesn't have a strong Doctor Who imagery to it. I always wanted something to represent how I'd spent so long appreciating this show and what it had managed to teach to me. And it was only about a couple of months before I got the tattoo that I had gone that line. But part of me also knew that it's a bit of a mouthfully line and I don't want the whole thing. So why not just get the part that manages to exemplify what I'm actually talking about? Just that kindness. You should always try to be nice to people, but kindness should always prevail. So being kind and being nice are not the same thing. So I decided to be kind. And in many ways, like I've gone back and forth on where I want to get tattoos, because I'm a big person and my weight fluctuates a lot and I have a lot of stretch marks. And I've been aware of this for a very long time, and I've gone back and forth as to where I want tattoos, because with fluctuating weight and stretch marks, it makes tattoos a little bit more difficult, and just, it always seemed like a headache. But the reason that I managed to choose my arm is there's all these random reasons that seem like reaches and kind of pretentious, but they mean a lot to me. So I'm right-handed, so if I'm shaking someone's hand, I'm putting my right arm out to them. So if I have a bare arm, then it's going to be one of the first things they see about me. They're going to see this tattoo that says "Be kind." So even if these people don't know me, they're seeing this idea that this idea that I love so much that I'm putting it inside my own skin. The other reason is that I'm right-handed, so I'm looking at my right hand far more often than I'm looking at my left. So it's also a reminder to myself that I am going to look at my right hand because I'm right-handed. I'm drawing, I'm writing, I'm doing all these things. I'm visually acknowledging my right arm more than I am my left. So I can see it and see it every day and look down at it and be reminded that that the right choice isn't necessarily the most easy one, but it is the right one, which brings us on to kind of the most pointless one, but it's on my right arm as opposed to being on my wrong arm, which, like, left-handed people, you're not the devil regardless of what Christians think, but this idea that it's right, it's on the right side, being kind is the right thing to do. It's that whole kind of linguistics language thing, and I really love the idea that language becomes something literal but also something figurative, and in many ways it's literally a pun. So it has all these different layers to it that I really appreciated. So that's why I got it there. And then I got it further up in my arm just because if I'm working in retail and they ask me to cover my tattoos, it's going to be a little bit easier than if it's on like there. It's there. And also because it's in the bend of my elbow, it's going to be missed a little bit more, I guess. So it's, in many ways, it's a combination of being very visible but also easily hidden. So that's appealing. It means a lot to me to have it. And that's my tattoo story. That's the story of my tattoo. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I will see you tomorrow, and I hope you have a fantastic day.